Hello, welcome to Dear Career. We're excited to be here today. We got a really good question from our audience asking about promotions, Julie. The individual wrote in and said, I keep getting turned down for promotions where I'm working. I don't understand why. I don't know what to do about it. What advice do you have for me? And my heart just felt for them because I think we all have been in that situation or know people who have. So I'm curious what your initial advice or thoughts are, and we'll kind of discuss it from there.
It's a really great question. And I think, we all have been or know someone who has been in that career and has been sat in that same spot for quite some time, perhaps has been looking forwards to a promotion or expecting a promotion, and it's just not happening. And then they see other people around them who are getting the promotions, and I think sometimes it's good at that point to just stop and think, you know, because there's a difference, I think, between being good at your job and then maybe being ready for that next one as well. And also how that's being portrayed to your managers, to the company. Because if you are loving your job and enjoying it and you're good at what you do, it's easy to continue in that position if people think, if you aren't communicating that you want something bigger, that you want to take that next step. So I think the first point is to reflect on what you're doing and whether you have communicated that to your manager or to someone else within the company. So the first step of action lies with you, because a lot of the time I see people aren't even communicating it. They're not even telling people this is what I want. And we all know, unless we actually say this is what I want, it doesn't often happen. So you have to be comfortable with telling people what you want first and then working towards it. What do you think, Nikki?
I think that's such a good point, and I totally agree. That's the first step. I think the second step, if they've done all of that, and this is what I've had some clients run into, is they're being flat out told by leadership, like, you're not going to get promoted here, or they keep dangling carrots of, well, when you do this training class or when you reach this milestone, and it just feels like they keep moving the finish line. The HR lens in me is always curious, like, are they just playing with you? They're happy with where you are, or like, is it going to happen there? I feel like another part of this question is, do you have to at least examine, do I need to leave to make it happen? I don't like to like promote anyone having to quit a job to get goals, but I do think it at least needs to be a valid like self-analysis in terms
Mhm.
of like, what is my relationship like with my superiors? What is my company like? Like, are they constantly promoting like the bro culture and like you're not going to change that there? I don't know. It's such a tough one because it's so hard to leave a job, but I also feel like it's really important to like do that analysis and think about, where am I really at here and how am I perceived and what feedback have they given me and like how has that gone? If I've jumped through all of their hoops, now what?
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you have already done that self-assessment of, what's missing for the next level that I want to be at, so you are aware of, the job role itself for that next level that you want to be at, and you feel like you are ticking the boxes, because a lot of companies, they do like you to almost be doing that role first before you get promoted into it. So that starts with that conversation with your manager, and often that will be, okay, well, you need to do this and this extra to prove that you are ready for that role. If you're already doing that and it's still not happening and something else keeps getting added, or like you say, the carrots being dangled, and you feel like you're just taking on more responsibility, but you are not getting the promotion that you deserve at that point, then you have to look at, number one, the company. If they are promoting other people around you, then that might be a sign to look at, okay, why else are they not promoting me? But if they have paused promotions altogether, It could be a sign that the company is literally not doing any promotional activity right now. And that's a sign of companies, tightening their belts, perhaps stopping all promotions full stop. And, there's nothing physically that you can do at that stage. And then you have a choice. Do I stay what I'm doing, or do I look at alternative options right now? Does that mean looking at other companies? So I think you have to ask yourself, you have to do that assessment. Is it me? Am I meeting all of the action points that I need to have that promotion? First of all, have I communicated? Have I met those action points? If I am, speak to your manager and say, well, what else do I need to do? And then really have an honest moment with yourself and think, okay, is this me or is this the company? And what's going to serve me best in the future?
That's excellent. And that kind of leads to my next thought on the topic, which is that chicken and egg thing of it's not going to happen here, but everywhere I want to go to make the next move requires, oftentimes I hear this example, leadership experience.
Yeah,
Not going to get it where I am now because they've made it clear, whether it's fair or not, that I'm not getting that here. But how do I get those jobs without the leadership experience? This is something that I hear a lot. I've often given the advice like, how can you, really expand it on your materials, like your resume, your interview stories of like the indirect leadership experience that you've got.
mm,
But again, the next person hiring, if they have a sea of candidates with all direct leadership experience, they tend to trust the ones with the experience. So it's always that sticky thing of like, how do I get it if I can't get it here and I can't leave? Ideas I've had for folks are, can you get involved in a professional association and be on like
yeah,
a leadership role there? I've seen folks, at least just within when I was in the HR community, do very strong, awesome things in SHRM on a
yeah.
local basis, and it tended to really launch them to some really good leadership roles.
Mm.
Also, community involvement's another way, like getting on a board and actually having some results that some of your leadership has led to. Get involved in coaching and mentoring
Mentoring, yeah,
others because these are ways that you can hone those skills, network, get your way there. A lot of times, though, I find that folks don't like to hear that advice, which I get. You're
yeah.
busy like 50 hours a week. You're like, how many more hoops do I have to jump through? So I don't know. What are your reactions on those ideas as well as like the emotional aspect of it?
I think some people don't want to be in that leadership role, but I think what you have to do is to come back to yourself, like I was saying at the beginning, and think, what do I want? Because there is that, yeah, I want a pay rise. Do I want the recognition? What is it that's going to benefit you from this promotion, and understand that before you actually want to take a step into whether you look for somewhere else, whether you speak to your manager. I think they're all really good things because it's not just leadership that you want to get into. But like you were saying, Nikki, it really is a great way to, even regardless of that, to get involved within the community and those different groups, even if you get the opportunity to sit on a board somewhere as well. These are all things that will help you with that being promoted, whether it's for a leadership role or not.
I like that. And you kind of made me think of, I had someone the other day who mentioned they left a pretty lucrative field to go into state government for like more of a work-life balance situation. And they said part of the way they justified the pay cut was they looked at the number of hours they worked for this lucrative role and the number of hours they worked in the state government role. And they said on an hourly basis, the math was kind of a wash because
Yeah,
they had this better pension. They were done at 4 o'clock every day. They were more involved with their family. And at that point in time, those were priorities that really mattered to them. I think our priorities can kind of ebb and flow based on where we're at in life. But it's been interesting to see folks equally like start side hustles. Like if it's purely just financially driven, there are
mm,
other ways to kind of, explore that that also can give you that skill set that you could put on your resume to potentially use whether internally or externally possibly to
Mm,
like take the next step. So I don't know what your thoughts are there. It's kind of coming out of left field, but I think it's something worth exploring because when I first started out of college, I mean, that's just what you did. You climbed the
yeah.
ladder. It was just that was success. But now seeing my own kids launch into this like new kind of job market, the trades, side hustles. I mean, some of the like on the last call, I keep talking about my dog trainer, but she runs a legit serious business. It's so impressive, and she's not working a corporate 9 to 5. And her growth potential with this business is unlimited as she
Yeah.
hires more people, etc. So it's worth exploring. That's not for everyone, but I'm just curious, like you raised such a good point of like, why do you want this? And how do
Yeah.
you tie that back to then your goals and action steps?
Yeah. And it's true because I worked with a client last year and then I've worked with them again this year. Last year it was all about a promotion that they were going after. And they got their promotion in the end. And this year, when we connected again, they're saying that they're just totally burnt out. They're doing, so much more than they had anticipated after having this promotion. And now they're wanting to already scale back because it's too much. And so I think you have to ask yourself, okay, it's all very well wanting a promotion, but also at the same time, what's that going to come with? Yes, it could be financially, you could be financially better off, but how many extra hours are they asking of you? What sort of chunk of meat are they asking from you for that promotion? So you have to be really clear, and that's why working with a professional can help you with that and being clear with what it is that you want. If you want to be promoted and, you know, nothing else matters to you at that point, that's the angle that you want to go in, then go for it. But at the same time, speak to others, find out what that looks like in your company. Is that really something that you want to dedicate to getting that promotion? Because at what cost? And I always think that's an important question to ask, Nikki, is at what cost is it to you and is it worth it? If it is, then put plans in place, whether that's looking at an alternative role or whether that's going after your job, going after the promotion within your current company, then put those actions in place. But at what cost? Always ask yourself.
I like that. The last thing I'd probably end with is I'm a huge fan of resources. If it
Mm,
were me, and this isn't necessarily like advice I'd give to a client, but I'm just putting myself in that like shoe,
yeah.
um, I would first look at a book like The Courage to Be Disliked because that was a
Yeah.
book that I listened to and I thought it was just earth-shattering in the sense of like quit obsessing over if the manager likes you, if the boss likes you, like etc. Focus on what your job is and focus on doing that well. And I just think that that book puts it in a really good perspective to kind of almost take some of the emotions out of it. So I would recommend something like that if that kind of resonates with you. Also,
Agree.
I would look at communication skills and sales skills. I would be
Yeah.
listening to books on those topics. I would be listening to podcasts on those topics. There's rarely anyone, unless their technical skills are just so amazing, that gets promoted into roles without strong communication skills and ultimately sales skills. A lot of folks just think sales equals slimy, but really, the more you learn to kind of make those better, I think the better your career trajectory will go if that's the goal. And then I would also say the same on industry trends. It
Yeah.
kind of blows me away how many folks like don't know what's going on in their industry. Like we're in the career and job search industry, and I'm like, I nerd out over labor market stuff. I nerd out over all of this. But when I talk to somebody in their industry and they're just isolated in their little vacuum of just their company and they like don't know anything else going on, I'm like, you gotta get out of that and start to think more like the hiring manager or even an owner per se. And then lastly, stress. I say this just because stress killed me in every position, like how I let it get to me, probably why I mentioned the book, The Courage to Be Disliked. Learning
Yeah.
how to like let things roll off of you and work on that stress component, I think can be a game changer because the folks I know really that have climbed the ladder in ways that I was like surprised by, every
Mm.
single time they can let things just kind of roll off them. That doesn't mean they're not internalizing it somewhere I'm not seeing it, but they just have a way of like managing that stress in a way that others can't. So even incremental changes there, I think are huge.
Huge, absolutely. And I think it's all really valid to think of in terms of promotion. And you mentioned a great book, and I just had a play there because I also have another great book, which is this Cues one. I don't know if you can see that at all, but it's
Yes.
Cues. And that's by Vanessa Van Edwards. And this is an awesome, awesome book as well. So that's another one. And I was going to say, Nikki, we'll maybe pop the links to both of those books in
Yeah.
below so that anyone can have a look at those books as well, because that's another fantastic one.
And as we wrap up, another option, which is a strong one, is work with a coach. They can help you identify specifically for you
Yeah,
what you need to work on and help you come up with an action plan on that. And then they
yeah,
can help keep you accountable for that. Again, this doesn't mean you're signing up for some like, $10,000 executive coaching package, just some small outsider feedback from somebody who's not your spouse, who's sick of listening to you whine about it, who isn't
yeah.
your friend, who always turns the conversation back to themselves. Like, this is your chance to like really speak out loud in what and have someone else ask some questions. You might be surprised by like what comes out of it. So I
Absolutely.
I, I also would recommend that. So
Absolutely. And in a safe space as well. Yeah.
definitely. Anything else before we wrap up, Julie? I hope we
No,
answered
I feel
questions
like
enough.
that was an interesting conversation. And I think, just to people who are listening, this is the angles that we want to go with Dear Career. This is what we're all about. We want to just have a discussion on topics that people are sitting with at the moment that might be mulling over in their minds. And so, if you've got any questions that you would like to send Nikki or I, or both of us to discuss on Dear Career, then please do so in the link below and also on any of our social media channels. We would love to hear from you. We are passionate about helping people with their careers and making changes in their careers. And even if changes happen to them in their careers unexpectedly, that's what we're all about. So I think, Nikki, you'll probably agree that it's a real privilege for us to be able to do that and help you. So if you've got questions, send them through to us. And if not, we look forward to seeing you on the next Dear Career.
That sounds good. Thanks, Julie. See you later.
Yeah. I think